School choice doesn't destroy public schools. It does the opposite. It actually makes them better.
The impact of school choice, now a major topic of debate, not just nationally, but also here in the Sooner State.
We all want more money into the classroom. We all want school choice.
Tonight, Oklahoma's House and Senate remain at odds on the best path forward on school choice legislation.
The House plan is everyone wins. Senate plan, what they sent over are some win, but most lose.
We're breaking down what the legislation looks like right now and the pieces triggering the tension. This as parent groups voice concerns about the proposed tax credits.
So we feel in a nutshell that they're harmful. We do not think that they are good for education in Oklahoma.
Why they believe they could have a negative impact on students. Plus, we're hearing from the state superintendent of public instruction about his stance on the topic. It all starts right now. And right now, the battle over school choice legislation continuing to play out in the state legislature. Leaders of the House and Senate each have their own ideas about what is the best way forward. While we're seeing a big push from some state leaders to get a school choice bill passed, not everyone supporting the idea. Some groups and lawmakers arguing it could hurt public schools. Tonight, we're digging deeper into both sides of this issue. And let's start with a look at how we got to this point. School choice first became a noted topic of conversation in our state last year. In January of 2022, Senator Pro Tem Greg Treat filed the Oklahoma Empowerment Act. It aimed to allow state money to be used for students to attend private school or to be homeschooled. And Stitt said during his State of the State address last year, he was on board. Now, we talk about this, and he did, again, say he was on board.
We know education is not a one-size-fits-all. And I pledge to support any legislation that gives parents more school choice. Because in Oklahoma, we need to fund students, not systems.
Now, despite the governor's support, House Speaker Charles McCall said he did not plan to hear the bill in the House. He expressed a concern for some of those rural school districts out there. Now, this bill did manage to survive the Senate Education Committee. It passed with just an 8-7 vote, was then amended in the Senate Appropriations Committee to make homeschool students ineligible, and then they added an income cap to this, but the bill failed to pass in the full Senate even after the vote was held open for over 2 hours. Here's how several senators responded to that outcome.
I was shocked by the vote, to be honest with you. I thought they'd have enough votes to get it across the line or they wouldn't have ran it. So the vote last night was a very difficult vote for me. Being a Republican that I am, and very conservative, at the same time I represent my people. This just didn't make sense to me, taking public money and put it into private schools.
I don't like to lose, and so I don't put things very often in front of people that I don't know the deck is already stacked in my favor. I think I can pass this, but I don't know that for a fact.
Now, fast forward to this year, Governor Stitt once again voices his support for school choice during his State of the State address. And now the first bill, there we go, the first bill we saw tied to school choice this session was the Oklahoma Freedom Education Act. The goal here was to have education accounts which would cover expenses like tutoring and private school tuition. However, this bill did not get anywhere. Now, McCall's Parental Choice Tax Credit Act is tied to another bill providing raises for teachers. These bills passed through House committee and full House. McCall originally said he wouldn't support any changes made by the Senate, but the Senate committee made several changes anyway.
What you see in the bills today is, I think, building upon what they sent to us. And so I hope they see it as such as well. And I hope we can move these forward to the governor's desk to really make historic investments in public education.
And we've got a breakdown of those changes making up the bill that we're seeing today. First, the Senate committee voted to raise the private school voucher to $7,500. That's up from $5,000 in the House version. But the credit for homeschooling, that was actually lowered from $2,500 to $1,000. Another change causing some controversy, an added income cap like the one we saw last year. The bill now says any family making more than $250,000 will not qualify. The full Senate signed off on this version of the bill last Thursday, but now the question is, what will the House do? Fox 25's Peyton May spoke with House Speaker McCall to find out.
It's still very contentious between the two chambers, op-eds, bill changes, and press conferences pushing the process back. But moving forward, there is one option that could potentially bring results.
We need to set all egos aside and just focus on what's best for the people of the state of Oklahoma.
The Speaker of the House willing to put politics aside for what he says is the only option for moving education reform forward, a conference committee where a few members chosen by the Speaker and the Senate President pro tem negotiate.
We will appoint conferees very quickly so that work can begin, but the Senate will have to, that work can't begin until the Senate reciprocates and appoints conferees as well.
The President pro tem seemingly on board with the idea.
I want to have negotiations in the public. And so I'm willing to have those. If he wants to have them in closed doors, we can do that.
If the two can agree to meet on the issue, the Senate is hoping the two Republican-led chambers will focus on the commonalities instead of the differences.
We all want more money into the classroom. We all want school choice. It's really a detailed difference on how we do the pay raise, and do we treat kids separately based on their zip code.
The Speaker open to changes in the details but isn't budging on the framework.
If you strip out the rural school funding, or if you limit the tax credit, or not every teacher in our state gets a teacher pay raise, or every school doesn't receive money, it's not going to pass the House of Representatives.
For a widely supported teacher pay raise and the most expansive plan to give all families the option of tax credits for private education, both are working to get it right.
We'll work through those differences. We're not that far apart in the whole scheme of things, unless he's unwilling to negotiate.
The Speaker told me we could expect conversations between the House and Senate leadership along with the governor next week. Reporting at the Capitol, Peyton May, Fox 25 News.
Now, Democrats in Oklahoma have remained steadfast on opposing school vouchers and say the back and forth between Speaker McCall and Pro Tem Treat is aggravating to watch.
While for some it may be fun to watch, it's pretty frustrating for those of us who have been working really hard to advocate for good and proper investment for public education.
Both school choice bills tied with teacher pay raises. Democrats at the state capitol have called for a clean teacher pay raise bill as not connected to school choice. Now, some parents speaking directly to lawmakers saying progress in Oklahoma education being held hostage by these private school tax credits. Fox 25's Jameson Kiefover sat down with the vice president of the Oklahoma Parents Legislative Action Committee, a statewide group of public school parents, on why they think credits would negatively affect students. All right, sounds like we're having a couple of technical issues there. We're going to try to get that to you as soon as we can. So again, when we get more on that, we'll have that for you, including that full package and report from Jameson Kiefover. As we continue to work through our school choice issues that we're digging through all across the state here, we want to make sure that we get you covered for everything that we absolutely have to have you get to. And let's go to more sound we have about religious affiliation and school choice and how those issues are tied together.
Oklahoma and other states should pass state-level programs, not put the burden of proof on parents.
And that debate for school choice in Oklahoma now even drawing national attention as the decisions made by your lawmakers in Oklahoma could pave the way for decisions made in states all across the country. I spoke with one national pundit who thinks they may have an idea of what the future holds for students in our state.
When we're looking at the school choice debate, it's important to look at all of these non-academic results as well, because parents care about a lot of things when they're choosing their kid's school.
Corey DeAngelis, senior fellow at the American Federation for Children, studies the effect on school choice in states all over the nation, including here in Oklahoma.
The House has a universal proposal with no income caps, whereas the Senate, although it does have an income cap, it already would cover the vast majority of Oklahoma residents.
While state lawmakers debate what system would work best for the future of students, DeAngelis is looking to states like Iowa and Arkansas for potential precedent of what school choice could look like in the form of a 3-year phase-in, a way for the House and the Senate to meet in the middle.
Perhaps in Oklahoma, you start with the Senate's proposal in the first year of $250,000 or less, covering the vast majority of Oklahoma families. And then you ratchet up later on to getting to fully universal, which is the House's vision of what school choice should look like.
Citing the $250,000 number specifically, DeAngelis says this would create a large entry class to make changes to the school system not so sudden.
In the first year, it's the vast majority of families being eligible, but then over 2 years, they ratcheted up to having all families eligible in the state of Iowa in the 3rd year.
And while DeAngelis says this is no sure thing, he does think it could be a solution that satisfies both families and lawmakers in the near and distant future.
You don't do it all at once, but families and constituents can be happy knowing that they will be eligible at some point in the near future.
And with still nearly 2 months left in the legislative session, there's going to be plenty of debate on this subject moving forward. And again, it sounds like we now have access to Jameson Kefauver and her report here with some of those parents from the Oklahoma Parents Legislative Action Committee. Again, that's a statewide group of public school parents, and they think these credits could negatively affect students.
So first, tell me how OKPLAC feels about private school vouchers in Oklahoma.
So we feel, in a nutshell, that they're harmful. We do not think that they are good for education in Oklahoma. And we are working for strong, equitable schools for all children in the state. And vouchers simply are not equitable, and they do nothing for public schools.
Yeah, I saw on the Twitter page, website, everything, public school funding should not be held hostage by private school entitlements. And you emphasize the word all students. So what does that mean exactly, that statement?
So we put that statement out because our legislature right now is working through some bills that they've tied together. So they are saying we will only increase funding for public schools if we also create this private school entitlement program through tax credits, which will primarily serve wealthy families.
The majority of those private schools are only in Oklahoma City and in Tulsa. There's a few that are outside of that area, but most of them are in those metros. So what options, if this were to go forward, would children be left with if they don't live near one of those schools?
It's a very real concern. More than half the counties in Oklahoma do not have anything other than a public school for their children who live there. So this program that creates a tax credit for people who are sending their children to private schools really does not reach the majority of families, parents, students in Oklahoma.
So you think this will just keep funding that same 70 schools that we already have?
I truly believe that the people who will utilize this credit are people who are already sending their children to private school, who can already afford to send their children to private school.
The argument that we continue to hear in favor of these vouchers or these tax credits is investing in individuals, not in programs, not in schools. What do you guys have to say about that?
It sounds cute to say fund students, not systems, but it is, when you really take a good look at it, it does not really hold water. Schools need music programs and athletic programs and farm and agriculture programs. We need vocational programs. These are systems that if they don't exist, our children as individuals cannot succeed. It's really wacky logic. It's like saying we're gonna invest in cars but not roadways.
You have a lot of criticism on what lawmakers are doing right now for public education. What do you think they should be doing instead?
Well, I will say we do have some criticism. This private school tax credit is a big problem. However, they have some really excellent bills that they are working to, we hope, to pass. The problem is that they're playing a game where they're saying we cannot pass these good bills like maternity leave for teachers. Our teachers don't have that today. Additional nurses and counselors in schools, additional building security measures to keep kids safe when they're on campus. All these things are being held up in order to pass this tax credit. They're saying we cannot do increased funding to schools if we don't do the tax credit, and that is wrong.
That's our Jameson Kefauver reporting. OKPLAC also questions what they call a legislative loophole by giving tax credits that would most likely invest in a religious institution, as all Oklahoma private schools having some kind of religious affiliation. Now, from the battle at the Capitol to the push from parents, our school choice coverage continues tonight. We're hearing from State Superintendent Ryan Walters live in studio when we come back. Well, school choice, a major topic at the root of a major conversation about your children's educational future. And joining us now to talk about that, Superintendent Ryan Walters here. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely happy to be here. Thanks for covering this incredibly important topic.
Now, I don't want to speak for you because I do have a feeling like I know where you're coming from here. When you talk about school choice and vouchers and how parents know their students better or best more than any bureaucrat could, right? So they're quick to make the decision. But you do have kind of those three big arguments against school choice vouchers. I want to get right to it. The first one being it takes that money away from public schools, the possibility of potentially destroying rural schools out there, and also that maybe school choice only helps the kids that are already in private schools. Those are really the three big ones opposing. What do you say to those?
Yeah, great question. Again, I appreciate the coverage tonight and really talking through this issue. We saw a great example today of exactly what destroys public schools. It's the Biden administration. The Biden administration today telling Oklahoma and telling all of the states that they have to allow boys to participate in girls' sports. I announced today I'm going to sue the federal government. We're not going to allow that here. But this is a great example of federal overreach, of the government trying to dictate the way that Oklahoma will do education. School choice is the true way to allow parents to say, I want to make sure my kid is in a school that shares my values, that actually values my kid as an individual. Our rural schools have done a great job with this, but we've seen urban schools continue to allow indoctrination to creep in and continue to not have good student performance. School choice is the way to ultimately align dollars and investment and parents' decision-making process with their child.
And I understand, I think that's one of the great things about Oklahoma is we want to run our things our way, right? We don't necessarily want to hear the national guidelines. We want to know what's best for our people here. But is there any worry to you that maybe by having school choice and being made a law here in Oklahoma, so now this is an Oklahoma decision affecting schools, where maybe kids get pulled out of those schools, they go to some of the private schools, and now your rural schools or some of your public schools, they lose students, they lose dollars, they lose programs, and then it affects those schools' abilities, not just educationally, but to make well-rounded individuals in general? Do you feel any concern there?
No. The closer you tie the investment to the child, the better it is for the child, the better it is for the parent making the decision, the better it is for the school. Every decision should be made around the individuality of a child, what's best for that unique child. And so what we're doing in allowing money to follow the kid, and all of the money should follow the kid, and every kid should have school choice. Every parent should have this option. What we're doing in tying the funding directly to the kid is ensuring that decisions are made in the best interest of the child, and ensuring when a child and a parent say, my better opportunity is over here, that child is aligned to the best education system for them. There's no better way to ensure the investment actually equals outcomes than tying those two things together.
I think where I'm sort of I totally understand what you're saying, and I think that's right? Every student should have that ability of funding to follow them and go with them. But I get worried about maybe some of these kids that don't have the ability, whether it's financially, whether it's transportation-wise because of where they're located. And we've already heard from some rural schools that there's not a lot of exit choices available to them. When they lose those students and the funding tied to them, now those schools drastically have to change what they do and how they do it. Is that not something that's come to the forefront here for you?
No, because again, in this system, we are a country that's built on the free market. Yeah. We are built on capitalism that says, listen, the best way to ensure decisions are made by the best means of the consumer is to ensure that we have a marketplace so the best ideas rise to the top and so that people can get what they want. And what school choice does is it says, listen, when you have the money following the kid, when you have people making the decisions in the best needs of the kid, schools will be much more attuned to student performance. They will push ideology out of the classroom. They'll put a focus on the basics. Let me tell you the other thing they're going to do. They're going to focus on supporting teachers because parents want good teachers. All of this investment following the kid ensures alignment for the best needs of the child. And what you will see, again, is great districts will continue to perform. They will grow their investment as time goes on. And if schools aren't meeting the needs of the kids, like Tulsa Public Schools, like some of our largest districts, what you're going to see is parents making the decision to put their kids in better learning environments. And that's what's best for the kid. And that's what has to be at the center of this conversation. What's best for every individual child?
Yeah, I can talk about this all day because there's a lot of passion here. I do get to a point where, we talk even as people, though. Sometimes, we talk about what we want versus what we need. And, if I want to eat, donuts for every meal every day, it's just good, right? But I know, that's not what I need.
Right.
At some point, do we realize or come to any kind of conclusion where parents want students to learn a certain way, but the purpose of a classroom is maybe necessarily, as a former educator, right, is to teach students how to think, not necessarily what to think. So to teach them and show them different ideologies and different viewpoints that will help them sort of branch out and learn as opposed to teaching them specific rigid guidelines in a certain way?
One wonderful question. You know, and that's one of the things that we've seen is, again, we used to do this. We used to say, parents, we want to bring you in really close to what we're doing in education. We want to make sure that you're part of the decision-making process. We want a robust education where you understand American history. That means the good, the bad, and the ugly. But what we've seen is the radical left has attacked our schools. They have attacked our schools and said, no, we don't want a robust education. We want to dictate to you this indoctrination on children. We want to tell kids what to think. What we want, what Oklahomans want. Again, getting to go through an election process, I got to go to all 77 counties and hear parents say, listen, we want our kids to know what makes America the greatest country in the world. Hey, we also want them to know the times we fell short. That's how you learn. And so we want a robust history. We want a robust education. Oklahomans want that. We do not want Joe Biden telling our kids that they're racist or bigoted because they have traditional values, and that's what we see time and time again. This attack by the Biden administration just 2 days ago is incredible. It's a direct attack on the states and a direct attack on our education system. We have to fight back. I will fight back from my position and keep the feds out of education, but ultimately, we have to give the choice and the power to parents. That is how we get out of this. This is how we become a leader in education. Parents know best for kids. There will be no one who loves a child, no bureaucrat, will love a child or understand a child better than their mom and dad. And we've got to align our education system to understand just that.
Well, we appreciate the time. We appreciate the passion. Thank you so much
for
joining us today. It's a huge topic, and we're going to continue to be diving into this. For the past week, we've been asking your thoughts on school vouchers in our state. Up next, we're going to show you where Oklahomans stand when it comes to school choice. Throughout our coverage of the school choice legislation making its way through the Capitol, we've been asking you if you support school vouchers in Oklahoma. We got to look at those results. 56% say they do support school vouchers in Oklahoma. 44% say they do not. You can join in on the conversation and share your opinion on school choice. Just look for our school choice coverage on our Fox 25 Facebook page. Now, lawmakers are going to continue debating and ironing out their school choice plan over the next few weeks. They've got less than 2 months until the session ends on May 26th. We're going to keep you up to date with the progress and the changes they make to the bill, both on the air here and online at OKCFox.com.